Welcome to Politics Unusual. I'm Robert Moses. Morgan Mackay is off. It was another eventful week in the race for New York City mayor. In a moment, Mayor Eric Adams joins us to talk about what has become an underdog campaign despite his incumbency. That's not the only race we're following. We'll head across the river to look at New Jersey's gubernatorial campaign with Tracy Tully, who covers the Garden State for the New York Times. And what Governor Hochul says about cell phones in schools as we approach a new academic year. But first, let's take a look at some of the week's top stories. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo announced that he will remain in the race for New York City mayor as an independent. He addressed his upset loss in the primary and the changes that he plans to make as we head towards November. The former governor says he is taking a different approach post-primary, which includes granting more on-camera interviews. And to that end, on Good Day New York this week, Cuomo was grilled on a variety of topics, including his inability to connect with younger New York Democrats, those who helped push Zohran Mamdani to victory.
Frankly, I didn't debunk the shallowness of what he was saying. He has great slogans. He was very good on social media, and it all sounds good. Free buses, free food, free education, everything free. Yeah, I want free. You know, who doesn't want free? Except it doesn't really work.
Meantime, Mayor Adams received endorsements from more than a dozen law enforcement unions. The Police Benevolent Association, though, was not among them. The PBA, which is the nation's largest police union, endorsed candidate Adams, himself a former police officer, back in the 2021 mayoral race. A PBA spokesperson says the union will likely make an endorsement decision on this year's race in the fall. And former interim police commissioner Tom Donilon made some bombshell allegations against the mayor and others in a federal lawsuit. Donilon says the mayor oversaw a corrupt department giving promotions to unqualified loyalists, sweeping misconduct allegations under the rug, and punishing whistleblowers. The mayor's press secretary called the allegations, quote, baseless, and called Donilon a disgruntled former employee. No question was off limits when I sat down with the mayor this week. I started by asking about Donilon's explosive allegations.
It's baseless, and it's just disgruntled employees. When the move was made in the NYPD, like it's often done, when new people come in, they make a determination of who they want on their team. And then, if you really want to find out why we thought we were moving in another direction, sit down and interview the guy for 15 minutes. Just interview for him 15 minutes, and you make your determination.
You were endorsed by more than a dozen law enforcement unions. How important is their support for your campaign? It's
huge, because as I said yesterday, there's never a time I go to a town hall meeting or to an older adult center that they don't say they want more law enforcement. It's a symbol of what I ran on. I ran on public safety. I stated I was going to make our city safer. We did that, decreasing crime in every year for the most part while in office. Now we have the lowest numbers of shootings and homicides. And it's a symbol of those unions standing with me, saying that this is the mayor we want to continue to keep the city safe.
I couldn't help but notice, though, that the PBA wasn't there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They supported you 4 years ago. Are you worried that they won't do so again this time?
No, I'm not. I'm going to show what we have done. We have given the PBA a fair contract. They've been fighting for a long time for that. We've done that. We've made the conditions better in the police department. And so normally the PBA, they do their own thing. They're not part of the coalition. They normally have their own form of process, and so I'm going to present my case to them. And when you look at the alternatives, Andrew did the Tier 6, hurt police officers, made their retirement longer, and clearly we see what Mamdani is doing around law enforcement, not fully understanding the role of defunding the police, telling police not to respond to domestic violence incidents, which is one of the most dangerous jobs you could go on. And so I believe when I sit down with the PBA and lay out my case, I believe they're going to see I am the best person to take us the next step on this journey.
big news of this week, Andrew Cuomo staying in the race as an independent. What was your reaction when he made that announcement?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. This is typical of what Andrew, what he does. We know what he did to Carl McCall, first African-American to run for governor. He sabotaged that race by going on a liberal line. He did it to Charlie King. When Charlie King ran for Attorney General, he moved him out of the race. He did it for David Patterson. When David was going to run for re-election as governor, he sabotaged that race as well. He has a whole list of things that he has done, particularly when it comes down to African-American leadership. But remember, I had to fix his mess. I had to fix his mess around bail reform that placed dangerous people back on our streets. I had to close 1,400 illegal cannabis shops, the bill that he signed, the pain that families felt when 15,000 of their loved ones were died in nursing home. And so the mess that he created, we fixed. Now our city is more healthy. Economically, we're healthy. Employment, our housing stock that we're building. And so we're going to move forward, and you really can allow these distractions to get in your way.
I want to ask a devil's advocate question.
Yes.
He says, hey, if for the candidates not named Zohran Mamdani, if by mid-September you're not leading, you should get out of the race. You have said, I'm not going anywhere. Why not abide by that pledge?
First of all, it's his. This is what he orchestrated. This is what he does. When you're around Andrew enough, you can see the signs of Andrew. But think about this for a moment. Let's say we would have followed that logic when he was 40 points up in the poll, when he was running against the field of Democratic candidates. He was 40 points up in the poll. The day before the election, his camp put out that he was 10 points up in the poll. He lost by 13 points. He spent $25 million. He put his message out. New Yorkers heard it. They didn't vote for him. So the real poll happened on the 24th of June when they decided that you're not the person that we want to be the Democratic primary winner. So if we follow his logic of let the polls determine and not the electorate to determine, that's the wrong thing to do. He should have never created this scenario. He created this. He knew Mamdani was going to be on the working families line. He knew I was going to be on the safe and affordable line. So why did he create another line? Because he's wanted this scenario. And he wanted to do to me what he did to Carl McCall, David Patterson, Charlie King, and so many others. And I told him, no, I'm the sitting mayor, Andrew. And your arrogance is not going to shove out the sitting mayor who happens to be the second African-American mayor in the history of this city.
But you've said you guys have spoken and you agree that Mamdani would do damage to the city. You said you agree with that. I'm characterizing that correctly, I think. If that's the case, why not, wouldn't, just for argument's sake, wouldn't Cuomo, in your mind, be better than Mamdani?
I say no to that. Mamdani would be damaging to the city because of his policies. His policies of government-run grocery stores will hurt small grocery stores. His policies around defunding the police would hurt the police department. His policies of promising to people who are hurting things he can't deliver is really painful. I know what that's like. I grew up in poverty. I didn't study poverty in school. I grew up in poverty. But then when you look at Andrew's policies, because this is about policies. This is not about individuals, but policies. Closing psychiatric beds. That's why we see people with severe mental health issues on our streets. Those are his policies. The shootings of those with long criminal records, that was his bail reform policies. Younger people being involved in criminality and particularly gun violence. He did to raise the age law. Those are his policies. And so the policies that he has put in place, because he succumbed to the far left, like the Mamdanis, is what created a major issue in the city and across the state. And so his policies, even with the MTA, he's talking about now, he wants to take over the MTA. He was a governor. He was in charge of the MTA as a governor. And so I'm afraid of both their policies, how they would impact the city that I love.
If the next mayor is not named Eric Adams, will you support him?
The next mayor? Oh, most definitely. I want to be mayor for one reason only. I love New York, and that love of New York is not going to change if I'm mayor or not. But I'm going to win this race, and I'm going to continue the success that we have put in place in the city.
And you don't believe the polls that have you in a fairly distant fourth place?
Well, those polls were placing me in distant places when I ran the first time. That's why it's so important to know my history. I've always been the underdog. That's the life that I live. And I was 13 points behind Andrew Yang. And I knew I had to get my message out to voters, and that's what I have to do now. And we surpassed Andrew Yang, and I became the mayor because of that. And I have real talent in my race. Ray McGuire, an important financier, Sean Donovan, former HUD secretary, Scott Stringer, who was the controller for many years. There were individuals who had real talent I was running up against. So I know how to run a race. And remember, when I stated I was going to be on the independent line, many people thought I was foolish. Now, look where I am. I am right in the place that I knew I was going to be able to face someone that I'm diametrically opposed to.
How do you assure New Yorkers that, given the charges against you were dropped by President Trump's Justice Department, that you won't be beholden to him in any way?
Well, think about it. It was dropped with a terminology called with prejudice. That means they could never come back. They could never come back. When it was without prejudice, there was a potential of it coming back, and many people were concerned about that. The goal is not to war with the president, it's to work with the president, no matter who it is. I did it with President Biden, and I'm doing it with this administration. I think that's what New Yorkers want.
In our last few seconds, anything else you want to get out to voters that I didn't ask you about?
I think that, democracy is important, and when you look at the primary that we just left, many people think that we landed the plane on an aircraft carrier and said, job done. No, it's not. 9% of the voters voted, 91% have yet to speak. Now it's time for those 2.5 million Democrats, 1 million independents, almost 700,000 Republicans. Now it's time for them to speak. And the excitement that people are seeing on the Democratic primary winner, I'm seeing twice that amount of excitement from people who are saying, we can't go back, we've come too far.
And you have the most money in the bank of any of these candidates. How will that help you?
Helps a lot. It helps me get my message out. When you are the mayor, you have to depend on the major legacy media to get your message out. You don't have the money to get your message out. Now I have the opportunity to tell my own story and communicate directly with voters of how successful we have been.
Still ahead, we head across the Hudson for a look at New Jersey's gubernatorial race, pitting Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill against Republican Jack Ciattarelli. Stay with us. Welcome back. We now turn to the race for New Jersey governor. With Phil Murphy term limited, the Garden State will soon have a new chief executive. Democrat Mikey Sherrill is up against Republican Jack Ciattarelli. Joining us now to talk about the race is Tracy Tully, a veteran reporter who covers New Jersey for the New York Times. Tracy, we're so happy you're here. Thank you for joining us today.
Good to be with you.
How much do you think we can glean from a primary in which roughly 1 in 5 registered voters cast ballots?
It may sound low, but it was actually higher than expected, which there's a lot of reasons for that because there were so many people in the race. It was the first race without the so-called line statewide. I think there's a sense that it's indicative of interest in November, and that it can only go up.
I have seen some divergent polls. Either Mikey Sherrill's up by double digits or she's up by the low single digits. Which do you believe?
I've gotten gun shy about polls in New Jersey in general, given what happened in 21, when they were really not terribly telling, ultimately. Jack Ciattarelli came far closer to beating Governor Murphy than anybody really expected.
Do you think Democrats are breathing a sigh of relief that they have kind of a more moderate candidate to go up against Ciattarelli? And conversely, do you think Ciattarelli was hoping that he would have gotten a more progressive opponent?
Sure. I think, Ciattarelli would have loved to have run against Ras Baraka, but Ras Baraka did pretty well in the primary. And conversely, the Democrats would have preferred to have run against somebody even further to the right.
How much do you think Ciattarelli will embrace President Donald Trump's endorsement of him? I mean, obviously, he kind of gets the MAGA vote there, but he wants to get some of the more independent vote as well. So how will he walk that line?
He's gotten pretty good at that. As you know, this is his third race for governor.
And just in our last couple seconds, you noted how close Ciattarelli came to beating Phil Murphy. Do you think he can get over the hump this time?
People sure think they have the best chance that they've had in, a long time.
Tracy Tully from the New York Times. Tracy, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
And still to come, New York public schools are finalizing their plans to go distraction-free this fall. The message that Governor Kathy Hochul is sending as she looks to get students to detox from their cell phones. Welcome back. Governor Kathy Hochul and New York City Public Schools Chancellor Melissa Aviles Ramos are getting ready for the school cell phone ban to take effect in the fall. They held a roundtable discussion at Walton High School about the bell-to-bell smartphone restrictions that will be in place for K-12 public schools statewide. All districts have to publish their distraction-free policies by August 1st. The governor and school officials say that change will limit scrolling on social media, improve mental health, and allow kids to be more focused and engaged.
Our children will emerge more well-adjusted. They'll have more in-person friends. One girl told me it's the first time I've had friends in person when they banned the cell phones from the school. She said, I never needed friends in person. Well, you actually did, but you just didn't know it.
The governor says communication channels will be put in place for parents. New York City Public Schools' proposed policy changes will be voted on next Wednesday. Still to come, we are going to test your knowledge of the tri-state region, so stay with us as we take a look at some political history. We'll be back.
Are here.
Now to a political flashback. We're looking back on some significant days in history. On July 15th, 1977, the iconic I Love New York logo was officially introduced. It was created for an advertising campaign launched by the New York State Department of Commerce to promote tourism across the Empire State. The logo was designed by graphic designer Milton Glaser. It has since become the widely recognized symbol of New York that can be found on souvenirs and merchandise. And finally tonight, we are testing your knowledge because if you like politics, you probably like history as well. Last week, we asked you, a chunk of the famed Plymouth Rock is on display at a church in which borough? The answer, Plymouth Church in Brooklyn Heights, which was founded by transplanted New Englanders in 1847. The rock apparently came from a parishioner when Plymouth Church merged with the Church of the Pilgrims in 1934. It's believed to be the largest piece of Plymouth Rock outside of Massachusetts. And now we turn to this week's question. What was Fiorello LaGuardia known for reading over the radio during a newspaper strike in 1945? Now, don't Google the answer, but if you know it or want to take a shot at it, go ahead and scan the code on your screen that's going to take you to our website, fox5ny.com, where you can type in your answer. And then check back here to see if you're right. And that does it for this episode of Politics Unusual. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Robert Moses. We look forward to having you back here next week.